How could my own sister watch me bleed, her eyes cold as she walked away? I'm Audrey, 32 years old, and I never imagined the sister who once shielded me from playground bullies would stand by as her husband shattered my world. Growing up in a modest Michigan neighborhood, Natalie, 5 years my senior, was my protector, my confidant, braiding my hair during late-night talks and chasing off anyone who teased me. Our parents, Dad a high school economics teacher, and Mom a nurse, worked tirelessly to give us a stable life, drilling into us the value of family, education, and financial caution. Always have 6 months of expenses saved, Dad would say, helping us open our first bank accounts. Those lessons rooted deep in me, shaping my careful approach to life, while Natalie always danced a little closer to risk, her carefree spirit charming but reckless. We stayed close through our teens, even when she left for college, leaving me to navigate high school alone, missing her laughter. When she married Greg 3 years ago, I welcomed him warmly, giving a tearful speech as her maid of honor. But now, as I sit in my new apartment, scars faintly tracing my face, I see how their request for me to guarantee a mortgage, a choice I refused, unraveled everything. The air feels heavy with betrayal's sting, like the sharp tang of blood I still taste in memory. If you've ever faced a choice between family loyalty and protecting yourself, hit like and subscribe below and share where you're reading from. Our childhood home in Michigan was a cozy split level with peeling yellow paint, the kind of place where neighbors waved and summers smelled of fresh-cut grass. Natalie and I shared a bedroom until she was 12, decorating it with glow-in-the-dark stars and posters of boy bands. She'd sneak me extra cookies when Mom wasn't looking, whispering secrets about her first crush. Dad's economics lessons weren't just classroom lectures. He'd sit us down with piggy banks, teaching us to save half our allowance. "Never risk what you can't afford to lose," he'd say, his glasses slipping down his nose. Mom balanced night shifts with bedtime stories, her hands calloused but gentle. Natalie, with her bold laugh, always took the lead, whether convincing me to climb the backyard oak or sneaking out to meet friends. I was quieter, content to follow, my nose often in a book. When she left for college, the house felt too big, her absence a hollow ache. I'd call her late at night, her voice crackling through the phone, promising we'd always be close. 4 years later, I followed her to college, majoring in business administration while working part-time at a coffee shop to cover what scholarships didn't. Natalie changed majors twice, art history, then communications, chasing passions that never quite stuck. We'd visit each other's campuses, laughing over cheap pizza, our bond unshaken by distance. After college, I landed an entry-level job at a marketing firm in our city, climbing to office manager by 29 through late nights and meticulous work. Last year, I bought a 2-bedroom condo, modest but mine, its keys a gleaming symbol of my discipline. The day I moved in, I walked through each room, touching the walls, pride swelling in my chest. Natalie's path was less steady. She bounced between jobs, event planner, retail, freelance graphic design, never finding her place. 3 years ago at a friend's barbecue, she met Greg, a salesman with a quick smile and endless charm. Their romance was a whirlwind. 6 months later, they were engaged. I stood beside her at their small wedding, my speech about our sisterhood bringing tears to Mom's eyes. Greg seemed perfect for her, attentive and ambitious, working in telecom sales despite its ups and downs. Natalie took a part-time job at a boutique, more for fun than need, or so I thought. We kept up our Sunday dinners at Mom and Dad's, holidays filled with laughter and Mom's famous lasagna. But slowly, I noticed changes. Natalie, once a thrift store queen, started eyeing designer bags, her comments about my practical sedan sharp with judgment. Greg began asking about my salary, my condo's value, his tone casual but probing. I brushed it off as his sales nature, not yet seeing the cracks forming in our family's foundation, nor the storm that would tear it apart. Natalie's wedding was a blur of joy, the small venue glowing with fairy lights as I toasted to her happiness, my heart full. I was 29 then, thriving as an office manager, my days filled with spreadsheets and team meetings, my nights spent decorating my new condo. Its hardwood floors and big windows felt like a reward for years of saving, a testament to Dad's mantra, never risk what you can't afford to lose. Natalie, though, seemed to drift further from that lesson. After college, she tried various jobs: event planning, retail, even a stint as a barista, each one abandoned when it didn't spark joy. Her carefree spirit, once so magnetic, started to feel unsteady, like a kite caught in shifting winds. When she met Greg, everything changed. He was all charm, his sales pitches smooth as he talked up their future. I liked him at first. He'd tease me good-naturedly about my cautious nature, and I'd laugh, thinking he balanced Natalie's impulsiveness. They married quickly, settling into a rented apartment downtown. Natalie worked part-time at a boutique, her employee discount fueling a growing taste for luxury. I'd visit, noticing her new obsession with designer labels, so different from the sister who once bragged about thrift store finds. Our Sunday dinners at Mom and Dad's kept us grounded, the table loud with stories and Dad's bad puns. But Greg's presence shifted things. He'd steer conversations to money, real estate trends, investment opportunities, his eyes lingering on me when he mentioned wealth building. I chalked it up to his job, ignoring the unease curling in my stomach. My career, meanwhile, was my anchor. I'd worked my way up at the marketing firm, earning a reputation for reliability. My condo purchase last year was a milestone. I'd saved diligently, avoiding debt, my credit score gleaming. Natalie celebrated with me, bringing wine and a houseplant, but her comments about my boring furniture stung. Greg, too, would joke about my practical car, suggesting I splurge on something flashier. I'd smile, deflecting, but their words felt like tiny barbs. At one dinner, Greg leaned in, his tone too casual. "Your condo's in a hot market, Audrey. Ever think about selling?" I shrugged it off, but Dad's raised eyebrow told me he'd noticed too. Mom, ever the peacemaker, changed the subject to her garden. Looking back, I see how Greg was sizing me up, testing my financial limits while Natalie drifted into his orbit, her thrift store days replaced by dreams of grandeur. I met Tyler around this time, a police officer who responded to a break-in at my office. His calm presence and dry humor drew me in, a contrast to Greg's intensity. We started dating, our evenings spent on quiet walks or cooking simple meals. Greg didn't take to Tyler, interrupting him at family gatherings or dismissing his job as low-earning. Tyler stayed polite, but I sensed the tension. Natalie, too, seemed distant, her laughter less frequent when we were alone. She'd text about new shoes or a fancy restaurant, her messages laced with a need for validation I didn't recognize. 6 months ago, at a Sunday dinner, Greg's talk turned serious. "Natalie and I are looking at investment properties," he said, swirling his wine. "Real estate's where the money is." Dad nodded politely, but later pulled me aside. "Be cautious, Audrey. Investments need knowledge, not just enthusiasm." His words echoed as I drove home, the first flicker of doubt about Greg's intentions. Natalie's calls grew less frequent, our late-night chats replaced by quick texts about her latest purchase. I missed her, the sister who'd once made me bracelets from yarn, not the one chasing status. When I shared my promotion to office manager with a raise, Greg's eyes lit up, his questions about my savings too pointed. I deflected, citing Dad's advice, but the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. My condo, my job, my life, they were all pieces in a game I didn't yet know I was playing. If you've ever sensed a shift in someone you love, felt them slip into someone else's shadow, share your story below. It's those quiet moments, those subtle changes, that can signal the start of something unstoppable. Around 4 months ago, my 32nd birthday dinner at Mom and Dad's was the last truly peaceful family gathering, the table laden with Mom's homemade lasagna and Natalie's gift, a handmade bracelet echoing our childhood crafts, its beads catching the light like forgotten stars. For a moment, I saw my old sister, the one who valued heart over wallet, but that warmth faded fast. A week later, Natalie called, her voice bubbling like champagne. "Come over for dinner, we have amazing news." I arrived at their apartment with wine, expecting baby talk, the space unusually tidy with candles flickering and a lavish spread. Greg pulled out my chair, overly attentive, as Natalie served my favorite tiramisu. Then Greg showed photos of a stunning colonial house, 4 bedrooms, gourmet kitchen, wraparound porch. "Our dream home," Natalie beamed. "Offer accepted this morning." I nearly choked. It screamed $500,000, way beyond their means. Greg read my face. Promotions coming, regional director's mine. But his job history was spotty, 2 changes in 3 years, each strategic but fruitless. We need you to co-sign as guarantor, Natalie said, squeezing my hand. Just a formality, your credit's perfect. The request hit like cold water, making me liable if they defaulted. Big decision, I said. Need time to think. Greg's annoyance flashed, then vanished. Sure, but bank needs word by next week. Driving home, Dad's warnings echoed. Never mix family and finances recklessly. I dove into research the next day, learning guarantors face ruined credit or lost assets on defaults. My advisor Linda was blunt. Enormous risk given their instability. Advise against. I met Natalie for coffee, sans Greg, at our favorite cafe with its cozy booths and steaming lattes. It's more commitment than Greg said, I explained gently. She stirred her drink. We'd never hurt you. Greg's promotion's locked. But what if it falls through? I pressed. Contingency? She sighed. Always worst case with you. Can't you trust us? This house is for our family. I suggested waiting post-promotion, but she nodded tightly. I'll talk to Greg. Thought it went okay, but Greg texted that night. Heard your concerns. Thought family supported dreams. Guess not. Passive-aggressive start. Sunday dinner turned icy. Greg curt, Natalie anxious. I explained my stance, offering smaller home ideas. We've mathed it, Greg snapped. Just need your signature for bank tape. Show me the budget, I asked. His voice rose. Prove ourselves? Your sister's word not enough? Dad intervened. No rush. Consider options. Greg, no time. Market's hot. Natalie's hug was stiff. Thought I could count on you. Mom warned later. Greg's intense. Do what's right. Tyler, hearing it, flagged coercion. Saying no protects you, not rejects her. 2 weeks of silence followed, my outreach ignored. Then Natalie called. Bank needs answer Friday. Are you helping? I can't take the risk, I said. Risk? It's loyalty. Remember my $300 college loan? Absurd comparison. Mom and Dad disappointed too. Family supports. But they hadn't said that. They backed me. Tyler's poisoning you, she accused, ending in tears. Parents confirmed no disappointment. Escalation hit. Visitors at work. Natalie and Greg in suits. In the conference room, Greg slapped down papers. Sign, we stop bothering. My decision stands, I said. Greg's voice boomed. Denying our future? Niece's home? Manipulation peaked. Natalie, reevaluate our relationship if you can't. I felt sick. Not about help. It's sound choice. Greg sneered. Always you first. Shaking after, I told Tyler, out of hand, emotional blackmail. He suggested documenting, lawyer maybe. Parents' dinner aimed to diffuse, but Natalie sniped, losing dream 'cause no commitment. Dad, no sides, personal choice. Greg, clear where everyone stands, you safe, we lose. They stormed out. Mom, not about house, something deeper. Then strange calls, credit checks I didn't authorize, bank alerts. Greg digging? Tyler urged fraud alerts, desperation's dangerous. Linda's deeper check revealed Greg's debts, maxed cards, collections loan, prior default. Stunned, did Natalie know? I prepared alternatives packet, affordable homes, buyer programs, hoping to salvage while protecting. It was a quiet Thursday evening when everything exploded. I had just finished preparing the information packet for Natalie and Greg, organizing it in a professional folder with tabbed sections and highlighted options. The material included alternatives to having a guarantor, such as first-time homebuyer programs, listings for more affordable homes in safe neighborhoods, and contact information for mortgage brokers who specialized in challenging financial situations. I felt good about this approach. Instead of just saying no, I was offering constructive alternatives. Maybe this would help repair the growing rift with my sister while still maintaining my financial boundaries. I had even ordered delivery from Natalie's favorite Thai restaurant as I worked, thinking comfort food might help me relax after weeks of tension. The spicy aroma of pad thai filled my condo, a small comfort amid the storm. At 9:30, aggressive pounding on my door jolted me from my thoughts. Through the peephole, Greg's face twisted in rage, Natalie behind him, arms crossed, tense. Audrey, open up. We know you're there, Greg shouted, fist slamming again. My pulse raced. Ignoring them might disturb neighbors, and Tyler was on night shift. I texted him quickly. Greg here, angry, before cracking the door with the chain on. What's going on? It's late. Greg's eyes were bloodshot. Take the chain off, we talk now. Can it wait? I said. I have info for you this weekend. He laughed bitterly. No, tomorrow, the bank called. We lost the house because of you. Before I could speak, he rammed the door, snapping the chain. I stumbled back as he burst in, Natalie following, pale but determined. Greg, leave now, I said, grabbing my phone. He snatched it, hurling it across the room where it shattered. You ruined us, your sister. I didn't. I couldn't risk it, but I have alternatives, I said, gesturing to the folder. Greg strode over, flipping through it. Cheap houses? Programs? You think we're charity cases? He flung it, papers scattering like fallen leaves. Greg, let's go. She chose, Natalie said quietly, not stopping him. No, she understands now, Greg snarled, advancing. The agent said sellers took another offer, financing delayed by you. Alcohol soured his breath as he loomed. Sorry you lost it. Other houses without guarantor. Afford? You think you know our finances? Anger rising, I countered. I do. Maxed cards, collections prior default. His face paled. No right to dig. Every right. You asked me to risk everything. Did Natalie know? I looked at her, confusion flickering on her face. Natalie, did you? Don't talk to her, Greg growled, blocking me. She deserves truth. This isn't just house, Greg has problems hidden. Shut up, he roared, shoving me against the wall. My head thudded, stars bursting. Natalie gasped but stayed put. I pushed back, but he grabbed my shoulders, slamming again. A pop in my right one, agony ripping through. I screamed, which fueled him. Think you're better with perfect credit job. He twisted my wrist as I shielded my face. Stop, you're hurting, I cried, pleading to Natalie. Help! What followed was chaos. His fist struck my face, splitting my lip, blood tasting metallic. Another hit crunched my cheekbone, warmth streaming down. I collapsed, shoulder throbbing, vision blurring. Natalie covered her mouth, frozen as I reached out. Natalie, please. She stepped forward. Greg, enough. Go. Not to aid me, but to leave. Greg backed off, panting. Your fault. As they headed out, I choked. How can you let this? Natalie paused, face unrecognizable. You should have signed the mortgage. Then gone, door clicking shut, leaving me in a pool of blood, heart shattered worse than bones. The sister who'd bandaged my scraped knees now abandoned me in agony. How long I lay there, I don't know. Pain waves crashing, blood puddling, shoulder fire. Phone broken, no landline, neighbors distant, screaming risky in my state. Only option, drive to parents, 15 minutes away. Crawling to purse, keys in hand brought sobs. Standing nearly blacked me out, wall steadying me through dizziness. Stairs were torture, left hand on railing, sideways descent, knees buckling twice. Parking lot air chilled my sweat-soaked blouse, blood staining. Driving one-handed, concussed, dangerous but necessary. Road blurred through swelling eye, I talked aloud. Almost there, stay awake. Bumps jolted pain, lights eternal. 40 minutes later, Parents Street, porch light a lifeline. I parked crooked, staggered to door, slumping, knocking weakly, blood-smearing paint. Who is it? Dad called. Me, I whispered. Door opened, horror on their faces. Mom screamed, Audrey, what happened? Dad caught me as legs failed. Greg attacked, Natalie watched. Blackness edged in as Mom dialed 911. Assaulted, bleeding, shoulder dislocated, hurry. Dad cradled me. Who, Greg? Mortgage wouldn't sign. Mom sobbed. Her face. Ambulance wait endless, compress on face, Dad talking to keep me alert. Lights flashed red-blue, officers with paramedics. Who did this, one asked. Greg Walsh, brother-in-law, at apartment hour ago. Drove yourself, strong. Paramedics IV, pressure drop, orbital fracture, dislocation, concussion. Pain meds softened edges. ER swarm, x-rays, reset shoulder, excruciating stitches, eye check for damage. Tyler arrived, uniform on, face pale. Sorry, accident scene, missed call. Stay. I whispered for statement. Detective noted Natalie's inaction, witnessed, did nothing. Parents arrived, faces etched in fury, grief. Overnight admission for observation. Tyler to them, felony, violence premeditated. Voices faded into sleep, wondering how sister became stranger watching me bleed. The morning after the assault brought harsh fluorescent lights, the sterile smell of hospital disinfectant, and the full reality of what had happened. My parents were already there when I awoke. My mother dozing in the visitor's chair while my father stood at the window, staring out with the rigid posture of a man containing volcanic rage. A nurse came in to check my vitals and change the dressing on my face. She held up a small mirror, and I hardly recognized the person staring back at me. My right eye was swollen completely shut, surrounded by deep purple bruising that extended across my cheekbone. Stitches zigzagged across my eyebrow and upper lip. My face was so distorted by swelling that I looked like a grotesque caricature of myself. The swelling will go down significantly over the next few days, The nurse assured me kindly, and the plastic surgeon did an excellent job with the stitches. The scars should be minimal. Scars. I would have scars from this. Physical reminders of my sister's betrayal that I would see every time I looked in a mirror. The thought brought fresh tears, which stung the cuts on my face. 2 police officers arrived mid-morning, neither of them Tyler, to avoid any conflict of interest given our relationship. One introduced herself as Detective Sarah Martinez, a member of the Domestic Violence Unit. Her partner, Officer Jenkins, had kind eyes that contrasted with his imposing physical presence. "Miss Moore, I know this is difficult, but we need to take your formal statement about what happened last night," Detective Martinez explained. "We will need to photograph your injuries as well, if that is all right." For the next hour, I recounted every detail of the attack, from the moment Greg pounded on my door to Natalie's final devastating comment before they left me bleeding on the floor. Officer Jenkins documented my injuries with a camera, his jaw tightening as he photographed the extensive bruising on my shoulder and face. "Have they found Greg yet?" I asked when they had finished. Detective Martinez shook her head. "Not yet, but we have officers at their apartment and your sister's workplace. There is an alert out for his vehicle. We will find him." "And my sister?" The officers exchanged glances. "We would like to speak with her as well. Her role in this incident needs clarification." After they left, my father finally spoke. "The locksmith is changing your apartment locks today. You will stay with us when you are released until we figure out something more permanent." "Dad, I cannot impose on you and Mom like that." "This is not a discussion, Audrey," he said firmly. "That man knows where you live. Until he is in custody, you are not staying alone." His protectiveness nearly broke me. Where was this protection when I was being beaten? Why had Natalie not shown even a fraction of this concern? The next few days passed in a blur of medical evaluations, pain management, and official paperwork. I was released from the hospital with my arm in a sling, prescriptions for pain medication and antibiotics, and instructions for concussion recovery. The prosecutor's office contacted me about pressing charges, making it clear that given the severity of the assault, they would proceed regardless of whether I wanted to or not. "This level of violence cannot go unanswered," the assistant district attorney explained during her hospital visit. "The state has an interest in prosecuting violent offenders regardless of family connections." On my 3rd day home at my parents' house, the police finally apprehended Greg at a motel 30 miles outside of town. Natalie was with him. The news brought conflicting emotions. Relief that he was in custody, but fresh pain at the confirmation that my sister had chosen to flee with my attacker rather than check if I was even alive. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, I filed for a restraining order against both Greg and, with tremendous heartache, Natalie. The court granted it immediately, based on the police report and medical documentation. My colleagues at work were incredibly supportive, arranging for me to work remotely during my recovery. Friends I had not spoken to in months rallied around me, dropping off meals and offering rides to medical appointments. Tyler spent every free moment by my side, his steady presence a balm to my shattered sense of security. The night before the preliminary hearing, my mother received a call from Natalie. She put it on speakerphone so my father and I could hear. "Mom, this has all gone too far." Natalie's voice sounded thin and desperate. "Greg made a mistake, but Audrey is blowing this out of proportion. She needs to drop these charges." My father made a strangled sound of disbelief. My mother's voice was ice cold when she responded. "A mistake? Your husband broke into your sister's home and beat her so severely she needed to be hospitalized. She drove herself to our house with a concussion and dislocated shoulder because you left her bleeding on the floor." "You do not understand," Natalie pleaded. "Greg has lost his job over this. We could lose everything. And Audrey could have lost her life," my father erupted. "Have you seen what he did to her face, to her body? Your sister may have permanent damage to her eye socket." "I know it looks bad," Natalie admitted, "but if she drops the charges, Greg will get anger management counseling. We can all move past this as a family." The casual dismissal of such violence left me speechless. My mother, however, found her voice. "Natalie, listen to me carefully. Your husband committed a serious crime. He belongs in jail. If you continue to support him after what he did, you are no daughter of mine." The silence that followed was deafening. When Natalie finally spoke, her voice was cold. "I see who you have chosen. Do not expect to hear from us again unless Audrey comes to her senses." The line went dead, leaving us sitting in stunned silence. My mother's hands shook as she placed the phone down. My father wrapped his arm around her shoulders as she began to sob. "How did we raise a daughter who could be so cruel?" she whispered. "Where did we go wrong with her?" "This is not your fault," I said, reaching for her hand across the table. "Greg has been manipulating her for years. We just did not see it clearly until now." The preliminary hearing the next day was my first time seeing Greg and Natalie since the attack. Entering the courtroom with Tyler and my parents flanking me protectively, I felt physically ill at the sight of them. Greg sat beside his attorney in a suit that seemed deliberately too large, perhaps to make him appear smaller and less threatening. Natalie sat directly behind him, her face a mask of resentment. When the bailiff read the charges, the gravity of the situation seemed to finally register on Greg's face. Aggravated assault, breaking and entering, criminal threatening, and attempted coercion. His attorney entered a not guilty plea, requesting bail despite the prosecutor's argument that Greg posed a flight risk and danger to the community. The judge set bail at $100,000, with strict conditions, including GPS monitoring and explicit orders to have no contact with me or my family. As Greg was led away to process the bail requirements, Natalie caught my eye across the courtroom. There was no remorse in her gaze, only cold accusation, as though I were the one who had destroyed the family. Outside the courthouse, reporters had gathered, alerted to the case by police records. My father shielded me from their cameras while Tyler helped me into the car. The local news that evening featured my bruised face as evidence of the violence that had erupted over what they called a family financial dispute. Over the following weeks, as my physical injuries began to heal, the emotional trauma intensified. I started seeing a therapist who specialized in both physical trauma and family betrayal. She diagnosed me with post-traumatic stress disorder, explaining that the betrayal by my sister had compounded the trauma of the physical attack. When someone we trust implicitly harms us or allows harm to come to us, it damages our fundamental ability to feel safe in the world, she explained. The recovery process involves not just healing from the event itself, but rebuilding your sense of safety and trust. Greg's attorney approached my lawyer with a plea offer a few weeks later, hoping to wrap things up quietly. Greg would plead guilty to a lesser charge of simple assault if I agreed to make no victim impact statement and perhaps even speak in favor of leniency. The proposal landed like a slap, minimizing the brutality of that night into something forgivable, a mere lapse in judgment. I refused immediately, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. The full truth needed to be on record, not just for my own healing, but to ensure Greg faced the consequences he deserved. No shortcuts, no dilutions. As the trial date loomed, Natalie's pressure ramped up in ways I hadn't anticipated. She started sending letters to our parents, long handwritten notes filled with pleas and distortions, claiming I was destroying their family over one bad moment and exaggerating my injuries for sympathy. One letter even accused me of always being the favored child, jealous of her happiness. Mom read them aloud to me over tea in their kitchen, her hands trembling on the paper, the scent of chamomile doing little to ease the tension. How can she believe this? Mom whispered, folding the letter away like it burned her. Dad paced, his face flushed. She's lost in his web, blaming you to avoid facing what she allowed. I nodded, but inside the words twisted like knives, reopening wounds I'd just begun to stitch. Natalie didn't stop at letters. She tried contacting my friends through social media, painting me as vindictive and unforgiving, a sister who turned her back on family in need. Most ignored her or blocked her, loyally texting me screenshots with messages of support. "We're with you, Audrey. Don't let this get to you." But a couple wavered. Old acquaintances from college who hadn't heard the full story, and their hesitant replies stung, reminding me how betrayal could ripple outward, tainting even distant connections. Tyler suggested I block her entirely, but I couldn't yet. Some foolish hope lingered that she'd wake up, see Greg for the manipulator he was. My therapist helped me unpack this during sessions in her cozy office, with its soft lighting and shelves of self-help books. Holding on to hope isn't wrong, she said, but it can't come at the cost of your peace. Boundaries are your shield now. I started journaling at her suggestion, pouring out the rage and grief onto pages that smelled faintly of ink, turning chaos into something tangible. Meanwhile, my physical therapy sessions became a ritual of progress. Gentle stretches for my shoulder, the ache dulling from sharp fire to a persistent throb. The mirror at home showed fading bruises, but the orbital fracture left a subtle asymmetry in my eye. A reminder that healing wasn't linear. When indirect pressure failed, Natalie escalated to direct confrontation. One rainy evening, about a month before the trial, she showed up at my parents' house unannounced, her knocks turning to pounding as thunder rumbled outside. I was in the living room, wrapped in a blanket, watching a mindless show, when Dad peered through the window. "It's her," he said, voice low. Mom froze, but I nodded. Let her in. Maybe this was the turning point. No, Dad decided, calling the police instead, violating restraining order, pounding on door, screaming. Through the wood we heard her. "Audrey ruined my life. Let me see her." Her voice cracked with hysteria, rain pattering like tears on the roof. Officers arrived quickly, their flashlights cutting through the downpour as they cuffed her, her protests echoing down the driveway. The arrest for violating the protective order was swift, a misdemeanor but enough to underscore her denial. She spent the night in jail, released the next day with a court date of her own. Mom cried herself to sleep that night, Dad holding her, while I stared at the ceiling, numb. How had the girl who braided my hair become this stranger, pounding on doors in the storm? As the trial approached, the prosecutor's team prepared me thoroughly, walking through my testimony in a sterile conference room that smelled of stale coffee. They shared more evidence, Greg's financial records, confirming the debts I'd uncovered, plus witness statements from neighbors who'd heard the commotion that night. Apartment security footage was gold, showing Greg breaking in, Natalie entering without resistance, their exit calm as I lay inside. "This seals it," the ADA said, her tone confident. I practiced my account, voice trembling at first but strengthening, like muscle memory for resilience. Nights were harder, nightmares replayed the assault, Greg's face looming, Natalie's cold words echoing. Tyler stayed over often, his arm around me as dawn broke, whispering, "You're safe now, we've got this." Work remotely helped, my promotion to operations director on hold but promised post-recovery, colleagues sending care packages with books and teas. Friends organized a small gathering at a park, laughter under sunny skies reminding me life continued beyond the courtroom shadows. The trial itself was set for a crisp autumn morning. The courthouse, an imposing stone building with echoing halls. I arrived with Tyler and my parents, nerves buzzing like electricity. Greg looked diminished in his orange jumpsuit, shackled, his lawyer whispering urgently. Natalie sat in the gallery, eyes downcast, no longer the defiant figure from the hearing. Jury selection dragged, but opening statements hit hard. The prosecutor painting Greg as a desperate abuser, me as the victim who dared say no. Defense claimed momentary rage under stress, but it rang hollow. My testimony came on day 2, heart pounding as I took the stand, the wood cool under my fingers. I described the door bursting, the shoves, punches, blood, voice steady, eyes on Greg. Then to Natalie, her inaction, those final words. "You should have just signed the mortgage." Gasps rippled. The jury leaned forward. Cross-examination tried tripping me. "Weren't you provoking him with financial accusations?" But I held firm. I was defending myself in my home. Leaving the stand, legs shaky, Tyler squeezed my hand. "You were incredible." Evidence mounted, medical photos of my swollen face, expert on financial coercion linking debts to motive. Greg testified last, voice meek, claiming blackout from stress, no intent. But the footage contradicted, jury unmoved. Closing arguments sealed it. Prosecutor, this wasn't impulse, it was entitlement turned violent. Defense pleaded mitigation. Deliberation took 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Relief washed over me like cool water. Parents hugging tight. Sentencing 2 weeks later. Judge stern. "Mr. Walsh, you assaulted family over refusal to enable your recklessness. No remorse shown. 8 years state prison." Greg crumpled. Natalie's cry pierced. For him, not me. In that echo I accepted. My sister was lost, replaced by someone choosing violence over blood. Outside the courthouse, the air felt crisp and heavy all at once, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot as reporters swarmed like bees, their cameras flashing and questions shouting over each other. My father held up a hand to shield me, his arm firm around my shoulders, while Tyler guided us to the car, his police training kicking in to create a path through the chaos. "No comment," he repeated calmly, though I could feel the tension in his grip on my hand. The local news had already dubbed it a family financial feud gone wrong, splashing photos of my bruised face from the hospital records across screens that evening, turning my private nightmare into public spectacle. Strangers messaged me on social media, some with support, others with judgment, questioning why I hadn't just signed to keep the peace. It stung, this exposure, like salt in fresh wounds, but it also sparked something unexpected. Solidarity from others who'd faced similar pressures, their stories flooding my inbox like lifelines. Mom fielded calls from extended family, aunts and uncles we saw only at holidays, their voices laced with shock and awkward offers of help. How could Natalie? They'd trail off, unable to finish. We didn't have answers, only the hollow ache of a fractured home. In the days following the sentencing, the legal loose ends tangled further. The prosecutor informed me that Natalie faced her own charges from the restraining order violation. Misdemeanor contempt of court with a possible fine or short jail time if convicted. Her court date loomed a month later, and part of me dreaded it. Another courtroom confrontation where I'd have to testify about that rainy night pounding. Her lawyer reached out indirectly through mine, floating a plea for community service in exchange for admitting fault, but I left it to the system. My energy for mercy had drained away. Meanwhile, Greg's appeals process began almost immediately, his attorney filing motions claiming judicial bias and insufficient evidence, dragging out the finality I'd craved. I attended a victim rights meeting at the DA's office, a sterile room with fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, where advocates explained my options for restitution. Medical bills covered, perhaps lost wages from my remote work adjustment. It felt mechanical, this pursuit of justice, numbers on paper, failing to capture the nights I woke sweating from dreams of fists and cold eyes. Tyler accompanied me, his notes meticulous, reminding me this was closure, step by step. Physical recovery pressed on amid the legal churn. My shoulder therapy intensified, sessions in a gym-like clinic smelling of rubber mats and antiseptic, where the therapist pushed me through resistance bands and weights, praising small wins like full rotation without wincing. The orbital fracture healed unevenly, leaving a faint dip near my eye that caught the light oddly in mirrors, a subtle flaw I traced with fingertips during quiet mornings. Pain meds tapered off, replaced by over-the-counter relief and herbal teas Mom brewed, their steam carrying hints of chamomile and ginger to soothe my lingering headaches. Emotionally, the therapist's office became my sanctuary. Twice weekly visits where I unpacked the layers, guilt for pressing charges, anger at Natalie's complicity, grief for the sisterhood lost. Betrayal trauma rewires trust, she said, her voice soft over the hum of a white noise machine. We role-played boundaries, practiced saying no without apology, turning abstract concepts into tools I carried like armor. One session, I broke down over a childhood memory. Natalie teaching me to ride a bike, her hands steady on the seat until I pedaled free. "How did that become this?" I sobbed. She handed tissues, no quick fixes, just space to mourn. Support networks solidified in unexpected ways. Colleagues organized a virtual fundraiser for my therapy costs, raising enough for months of sessions, their emails warm with encouragement. "You're stronger than you know." Friends from college, scattered across states, sent care packages, books on resilience, cozy blankets, even a spa voucher for when I felt ready. Tyler's police buddies checked in too, one offering self-defense classes once my shoulder mended, another sharing stories of similar cases to remind me I wasn't alone. Parents bore their own burdens. Dad joined an online support group for families of domestic violence victims, his evenings spent on video calls sharing regrets about missing Greg's red flags. Mom baked endlessly, filling the house with scents of cinnamon rolls and apple pie, her way of nurturing through chaos. We had family therapy once, a tentative session where tears flowed freely, acknowledging our collective guilt. Why didn't we intervene sooner? but it bonded us closer, forging a new dynamic of open vulnerability. As winter approached, Natalie's trial arrived, a smaller affair in a municipal court smelling of old wood and coffee. She pleaded guilty to the violation, her voice small in the echoing room, accepting probation and mandatory counseling. No eye contact with me across the aisle, just a quick glance at sentencing, her face pale under the harsh lights. Afterward, she approached hesitantly in the hallway, guards nearby. "Audrey?" But Dad stepped between us, his voice firm. "Not now, not like this." She nodded, turning away, a ghost of the sister I'd known. It didn't feel like victory, just another layer of sorrow. Greg's appeal was denied shortly after, solidifying his 8 years, news delivered via email that I read alone in my childhood bedroom, relief mingling with emptiness. Justice, it seemed, was a double-edged sword, necessary but not wholly healing. Through it all, I clung to routines. Morning walks with Tyler, his hand in mine as leaves fell, conversations shifting from the case to future dreams, a quiet promise of light beyond the storm. 6 months after the sentencing, physical therapy had restored most of the function in my shoulder, though certain movements still triggered twinges of pain. The plastic surgeon had done remarkable work, minimizing the facial scarring, but a thin white line above my right eyebrow and another at the corner of my lip remained visible reminders of that night. The deeper scars, the ones nobody could see, were healing more slowly. My parents had helped me find a new apartment in a secure building with 24-hour security and no public access to resident floors. I had initially resisted such extreme measures, not wanting to live in fear, but my therapist helped me understand the difference between fear and prudent caution. Creating physical safety is an essential part of your healing journey, she explained during one of our weekly sessions. It is not about living in fear, but about respecting your body's need for security, while your mind processes the trauma. The nightmares had decreased from nightly occurrences to perhaps once a week. I no longer jumped at every unexpected knock or flinched when someone raised their voice in excitement. These were small victories, hard-won through consistent therapy and the unwavering support of those around me. Tyler had been my rock throughout the recovery process, never pushing, but always present. Our relationship had deepened through the crisis, his patience and understanding creating a safe space for my healing. When he surprised me with a weekend getaway to a lakeside cabin 3 months after the trial, I found myself able to truly relax for the first time since the attack. "I am proud of you," he said, as we sat watching the sunset over the water. "Not just for surviving, but for how you have handled everything. Your strength amazes me every day." My career had become another anchor in my recovery. 2 months after the trial, I received an unexpected promotion to operations director, a position that came with both greater responsibility and flexibility to continue my therapy appointments. My colleagues, who had rallied around me during the darkest days, celebrated this professional advancement as another step in my journey forward. Natalie remained a complicated absence in my life. After Greg's sentencing, she had moved in with a friend, unable to maintain the apartment on her part-time income alone. According to my mother, who maintained minimal contact with her, Natalie had finally filed for divorce 3 months into Greg's sentence when the reality of their financial situation became impossible to ignore. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, I received a letter with her handwriting on the envelope. For several minutes, I simply held it, uncertain whether opening it would represent progress or a setback in my healing. Eventually, curiosity won out. "Audrey," the letter began, "I do not expect forgiveness. I do not even know if I deserve to ask for it, but I need you to know that I am getting help now. My therapist says I was in an emotionally abusive relationship that distorted my thinking and loyalties. That is not an excuse for what I did or failed to do that night. Nothing can excuse that. I just wanted you to know that I am trying to understand how I became someone who could watch her sister be hurt and do nothing. If you ever want to talk, I would welcome it. If not, I understand. Either way, I am sorry. Natalie." The letter stirred complicated emotions. Part of me wanted to dismiss it as too little too late. Another part recognized the courage it took to acknowledge such a profound moral failure. I showed it to my therapist during our next session. "How does this letter make you feel?" she asked after reading it. Confused, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe she is genuinely sorry that the sister I grew up with is still in there somewhere. But I also do not know if I can ever trust her again, or if I even want to try. Reconciliation is not an obligation, she reminded me. It is a choice, and one that should be made based on what supports your healing, not on family expectations or guilt. Whatever you decide, it should be on your timeline, not hers. I decided not to respond immediately, giving myself permission to sit with the complexity of my feelings without forcing a resolution. This was one of many new boundaries I was learning to establish in my life. My parents had their own healing journey. The fracture in their family had left them questioning their parenting, their values, even their understanding of their own children. They had started attending a support group for parents of adult children in crisis, finding solace in shared experiences and wisdom. We always thought family meant supporting each other no matter what. My father reflected during a quiet dinner at their house. Now we understand that true support sometimes means holding people accountable, even when it hurts. My mother reached across the table to squeeze my hand. We will always regret not seeing the warning signs with Greg, but we are so proud of how you have handled this, Audrey. You showed us what real strength looks like. As my confidence rebuilt, I found myself drawn to sharing what I had learned. 6 months after the trial, I approached the local community college about hosting a financial education workshop specifically designed for women. The focus was on financial independence as a form of self-protection, covering everything from building emergency funds to understanding the legal implications of co-signed loans and joint accounts. The first workshop drew 30 participants. By the third monthly session, we had to move to a larger venue to accommodate over 70 women. Some came from the local domestic violence shelter, others were students or working professionals. The common thread was a desire for financial knowledge as a pathway to security and independence. Tyler attended the fourth workshop, sitting quietly in the back of the room. Afterward, as I gathered my materials, he approached with a small velvet box in his hand. I was going to plan some elaborate proposal, he said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. But watching you tonight, seeing how you have transformed your pain into purpose, I could not wait another day to ask you to share your life with me. The ring was simple and elegant, a single diamond in a classic setting. It represented everything I had come to value: clarity, strength, and enduring beauty that emerges from pressure. My immediate instinct was to say yes, but I paused, honoring the promise I had made to myself about making deliberate rather than reactive decisions. "Can I think about it?" I asked gently. "Not because I do not love you, but because I want to be sure I am saying yes for the right reasons, not from fear or dependency." His smile was tender with understanding. "Take all the time you need, the question will still be here when you're ready to answer." 2 weeks later, after deep reflection and a candid discussion with my therapist about healthy versus reactive relationship choices, I gave him my answer over dinner at my new apartment. The yes came not from fear or need, but from a place of strength and genuine choice. As spring turned to summer, I found myself volunteering at the same domestic violence shelter whose residents had attended my workshops. Once a week, I sat with women whose stories echoed aspects of my own, offering not just practical advice, but living proof that survival and rebuilding were possible. The hardest lesson I learned, I told a group during one session, is that family is not defined by blood or obligation. True family consists of people who protect rather than endanger you, who respect your boundaries rather than demand their violation, who value your well-being as much as their own desires. 1 year to the day after the attack, I stood before the bathroom mirror and really looked at my scars. The physical marks had faded significantly, though they would never disappear completely. I traced the line above my eyebrow gently, no longer seeing it as a mark of victimhood, but as evidence of survival. That evening, Tyler and I hosted a small dinner party at my apartment, a deliberate reclaiming of space that had once been violated. My parents were there, along with close friends and colleagues who had supported my recovery. Conspicuously absent was Natalie, though I had finally responded to her letter the week before, suggesting we meet for coffee someday soon. a small opening toward whatever new relationship might be possible. As we raised glasses in a toast, I looked around at these people who had become my chosen family, who had demonstrated through actions, rather than mere words, what love and support truly meant. The journey had been brutal, the losses profound, but standing there surrounded by genuine connection, I recognized the precious wisdom that had emerged from trauma. To boundaries that protect, courage that rebuilds, and love that respects. And to all of you who showed me what true family means. Later, as guests departed and Tyler helped clean up, he asked if I was okay, noticing my momentary quiet reflection. I am more than okay, I realized aloud. For the first time since it happened, I feel genuinely at peace, not because everything is perfect or because all wounds are healed, but because I know now that I can trust myself to protect what matters, to choose wisely, and to rebuild no matter what falls apart. Have you ever had to choose between family expectations and your own well-being? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember that setting boundaries is not selfish, it is essential self-care. If this story resonated with you, please consider subscribing to hear more journeys of healing and transformation. And if you know someone who might be struggling with similar family pressures, sharing this could help them feel less alone. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, true strength is not found in never falling, but in rising every time we fall.